Hey, how's it going, everybody? This is Sean with the Natural Gamers. I'm gonna do something a little different today. Doing this like little audio only thing for movie reviews, cause well, I'll be able to just put them up on the channel really quick. So I figured I'd just do it this way. I'm here by myself, but that's okay. Anyways, I saw two movies actually this weekend. I saw the new Mission Impossible on IMAX and Sherlock: A Game of Shadows, not on IMAX, on regular screen, but nonetheless. And also, I got to see the teaser, or the full-length trailer for The Dark Knight Rises before my Mission Impossible. Not the prologue, not the 6-minute prologue. That's not playing around where I live. Otherwise, I probably would have went to go see that. I'm kind of a big Batman fan. So I guess I'll just start off in order here. The first thing I saw was the new Dark Knight Rises trailer, which is out online right now. You can go check it out. Really cool. Really looks really good. I'm pretty excited for it. I've always been kind of a big Batman fan, just in general. My favorite superhero since I was knew what superheroes were. He's always been my guy, just because he's the practical man. He doesn't have superpowers. He actually has to do everything himself, and he gets by because he's intelligent, because he's smart. The world's greatest detective, Yeah, and I really enjoyed the trailer. I thought it was cool. It set a very good tone and good mood, and which and it fell in line with the other two movies, which I really enjoy. No, I don't. I really do enjoy them. I guess, I don't know, I can't say if they're my favorite. They're definitely probably the best of the Batman movies. I mean, it's, probably, and The Dark Knight is definitely better than Batman Begins, but The Dark Knight is overrated. I'm not saying I don't like it. I love it. I think it's a great movie. It probably is the best Batman movie ever made, but it is, because it's sloppy. The action, the pacing is a little weird. The action scenes aren't shot really all that well. It's kind of like that jump cut all over the place. You can't really tell what the fuck is going on half the time. But really but the tone of the movie is what I would want in a Batman movie. And in the performance and stuff, and the performances of Christian Bale and Gary Oldman and Heath Ledger is kind of what make that movie as awesome as it is, and it's as memorable as it is, I guess. Because if it weren't for those performances, I think people wouldn't like it as much. I think they'd feel it's pretty mediocre. I mean, a lot of the reaction also is just they were taking Batman seriously for the first time, and not just Batman, but Bruce Wayne. Actually, Bruce Wayne is a big character because it's one of it's the only Batman movies in its own series, its own mythology. It's going to be 3 contained movies that tell one singular story, is that Bruce Wayne is the character. Batman's not actually the character. It's actually Bruce Wayne. Batman is who Bruce Wayne pretends to be. It's who Bruce Wayne, just like everybody, would like to be. This beacon of justice and things like that. But Batman, and what I do, and also another thing I appreciated about the Dark Knight was they show that Batman is he's a little out of control, actually. He's a little high on his own power. I mean, it's kind of like he's like the evil big brother. That's what he becomes. He kind of becomes a little bit of a power, or thinking that he should be able to have the ability to surveil everybody in Gotham, because he's responsible enough, and without any checks and balances. And if you've seen the movie before, you know what's about the cell phone, the sonar system in the cell phones, and that Lucius Fox is the one that has a problem with it, and then he uses it to find Joker, and then he self-destructs it, which is your perfect world scenario. But but anyways, that's kind of a different topic. The trailer is really cool. You don't really actually see much of Batman, or really get a good handle on what the plot is. The plot is, it seems like basically what the plot's going to be like. It's going to be Gotham has gone through a time of great peace. Basically, takes place 8 years after the Dark Knight ends, and but then there's something like Bane is the new villain. Bane and Catwoman, they're kind of there stirring basically social unrest. It's I'm sure this was done totally on purpose. Mirroring the Occupy Wall Street movement and kind of people's sentiments. I'm curious whether or not they're actually going to like how they're gonna handle the politics in it, which I'm kind of disappointed that they are like shoving that into a Batman movie. Like I understand that these movies are trying to like, you know, I guess like be the most realistic of Batmans and stuff like that, but it's just like you don't, but and trying to be relevant to today, like, and they're just kind of ripped from the headlines type attitude for like more or less sensationalism, and that's a little unfortunate. I was a little bummed about that because it's not necessary. Like I see that every day, you know. I can, you know, turn on the news or go online and I can hear about that. Like I don't necessarily need Batman coming to terms with it. So I'm very curious to see where it's gonna land on the politics sides of that, because they are forcing it, like they did it also in The Dark Knight with the whole surveillance thing, and basically Batman was like his own Patriot Act pretty much, you know. But I don't know, I'm not going to get into politics and stuff like that, otherwise this will be really long, and just don't have time for it right now. But and then after the trailer, I went to see Mission Impossible in IMAX. Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol, totally worth it, man. Probably the best Mission Impossible. I'm not like a huge fan of the series or anything like that. Although I did really like the first Mission Impossible when I was like 10. And I've enjoyed them. Like the second one's the lamest. It's got incredible action scenes, but it is, you know, it's definitely the lamer of the four. But that's more has to do with John Woo. John Woo's just, everything he does is kind of cheesy. Even if you go back and look at some of his really awesome movies like Hard Boiled or The Killer, and The Killer, they're kind of cheesy. They're a little corny, like some of the humor and stuff like that, and in the constant dove symbology, or symbolism rather, symbology. Jesus. It's very weird talking to yourself. You stare at a microphone, it's blinking at me, and I'm just talking at it. It's very odd. But anyways, back to the movie here. Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol. Action-packed, just like a lot of fun. Probably the best action movie I'd seen in quite some time, actually. And awesome on IMAX. Like, IMAX tickets are ridiculously expensive, which I didn't realize. I hadn't seen a movie in IMAX since Avatar. And that was a fucking waste. That was a waste of an IMAX ticket, because I do not like that movie at all. And but this was actually worth it. $17 for a matinee IMAX is pretty ridiculous to be paying to go see a movie. But anyways, I did, because I had heard that because they filmed most of the major action set pieces in IMAX. And it was totally worth it. Like, it was larger than life. I mean, like, there's this scene in Dubai where he's like climbing up the side of the building. It's been on the trailers and stuff like that, which is absolutely incredible in IMAX. Like, it was really cool. Like, you really get like a sense of the depth of field and stuff like that, and like really feel like I almost get like kind of like a vertigo sensation. When the camera would kind of like be up over Tom Cruise, like looking straight down, and like you actually like realize like how high up they were. Like, I don't know how they filmed it and stuff like that. I know Tom Cruise is pretty game for doing a lot of his own stunts, so I wouldn't be surprised if he's on the side of the building for at least parts of it. Really, actually impressed, man. Like, it's probably one of the more just like enjoyable movies, and it's like not. It's you know, it encompasses what like most of the movies this summer should have been. Like a lot of the big action movies, because there was no like movie that came out this summer, maybe besides like Rise of the Planet of the Apes, which I thought was kind of like a surprise, but I think I enjoyed that so much because my expectations were just, I had zero expectations for it. Like, most of the movies that came out this summer were like halfway successful. They were like half of a good movie. And like, because, you know, when you're talking about big blockbuster and like summer movies and stuff like that, you just want escapism. You just want something you can turn your brain off, quote unquote. And I mean, which I hate that term, but turn your brain off and just like watch something that's entertaining and flashing bright colors and whatnot. Because I mean, like Mission Impossible, it's got like a very fast paced, very well paced. Like, it just, even at like a little over 2 hours, like you never feel like you're sitting there for that long. It's always, you know, the plot is just there to set up like action set pieces, really. Like, we just got finishes with this action set piece. Here's a little bit more exposition. We're gonna learn just tiny little tidbits about the characters, and then we're gonna move on. We're gonna get to the next action set piece, and I'm fine with that. Like, and it's at least the story wasn't like fucking insulting. Like, it's not so dumb that you're actually like angry about it. Like, which happens to me quite a bit. I don't know. I'm not in tune with a lot of popular media apparently. So, but anyways. And you know, it's crazy, and Tom Cruise is still like really entertaining to watch. It's actually one of the more successful elements of the movie, is because Tom Cruise is in it. Actually, like, he's really, really entertaining in the same way that, which I'll talk about in just a little bit, was with like Robert Downey Jr. and Jude Law and in the Sherlock Holmes movies. Like, they're one of the bigger draws of the movie. The kind of the plot and everything like that, while they can be interesting and entertaining, are pretty much secondary to enjoying basically a movie stars, like enjoying their star power and stuff like that, and what they bring to it and what they bring to the characters. They're just very entertaining personalities on their own, and they bring all that weight with them when they do a movie like Sherlock Holmes or a Mission Impossible, or with Tom Cruise like Minority Report and stuff like that. Like, they are, you know. I mean, you can think whatever you want about them personally, but they're really good, like charismatic, charming, funny, like all those, you know, stereotypical things that people, you know, words they throw out when they talk about a leading man. Like, those guys have it, and that's, you know, it's kind of a dying breed. Like, you don't see that very often anymore in movie stars, like, where they're not really movie stars. Like, because we get people like Channing Tatum and like was the guy from Avatar, I can't even, Sam Worthington. Like, they're boring. Like, those are the people that are being sold to us as a kind of our next generation Tom Cruises, our next generation like action stars and stuff like that. Like, they're not like Bruce Willis and stuff like that, you know. They're not action, like in the action stars that I grew up with. Like, if you're my age, you kind of grew up in the action like movie heyday. You know, the late 80s and early 90s to mid 90s, like, where you got like where like Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sylvester Stallone and Bruce Willis, they were kings of that stuff, and they were like, you know, the biggest box office draws in the world when they would make a movie. Like, their movies were always successful, you know, regardless of quality. But most of the time they weren't that bad. Like, most of the time they're pretty decent and at least watchable and entertaining. And nowadays it's really, you just don't have that, because, you know, at the end of the day, you're kind of who they are in their regular life. You know, the things they do don't really matter, but who they are in their personality, like how pleasant they are to speak, basically. The personality is kind of what you're looking for. That's kind of what you get when you watch a lot of their movies, because they're not doing like these crazy character pieces, you know. They're not. They're playing themselves to a certain degree. They're themselves with like superpowers, you know, for lack of a better term. But yeah, I would totally recommend it. Maybe, you know, you don't have to go see it in IMAX. It still would be an entertaining flick, even if you saw it in regular theaters, which I believe it hits like regular theaters like Wednesday. Mission Impossible does. Totally, it's a recommend for me. I would recommend going to see it in the theater, to go, like, because that is a movie. The action set pieces in that movie kind of scream to be seen on a big screen, and yeah, totally enjoyable. Totally enjoyed it. And the other movie I got to see was I saw Sherlock Holmes 2, A Game of Shadows, or Sherlock Holmes: A Game of Shadows, and that was pretty good. It kind of got some bad notices on the reviews, which, I mean, I kind of just like look at Rotten Tomatoes and see what the, you know, freshness or rotten rating is, because which is something I won't do, which is give away the plot. Like, they constantly pretty much tell you the entire plot of the movie. And some of them even like spoil major things. Like, I had read a review of for Mission Impossible: Ghost Protocol. I was just kind of skimming it, and I caught like a major character like point, and that's kind of a mystery in the movie. Like, you don't really know what it is, what the answer is, what the truth is, and the guy says it in the first two sentences of his review, and I was kind of like, I was just pissed off. I was just a little bit miffed about that. So I'm not going to go into any, and if I ever do, I'll say so, because I might do this often. I watch a lot of movies. Big movie fan. And but anyways, yeah, Sherlock Holmes: A Game of Shadows, very entertaining, very funny. They kind of like, I think they took like some of the elements, they took the things that worked with the first Sherlock Holmes and kind of just gave you more of it. That's really, I mean, what they did, what most sequels do. You know, it's just the funnier, faster paced, more actions, bigger action set pieces type of thing. It's a sequel. It's a very like normal, standard kind of sequel, kind of way of doing it. Like, that's the way I felt about it while I was watching it. Like, I laughed a lot, cried. It's more funny. It's more of like a comedy than anything, actually. At least that's kind of how I felt about it. I was like, wow, this is really more funny than anything, which was fine. Like, it was very light, breezy entertainment, and it was done well. Like, people that were going to see a movie like that and are expecting some sort of like serious, on the nose like type of Sherlock Holmes movie, you know, either didn't watch the first one or are kind of stupid. Like, I don't know what else to say. Like, like, what were you expecting when you went to go see that movie? Like, to me, that was just as good as the first one. But I will say as a disclaimer, like, I like the first movie. I don't love it. It's not like my favorite movie of all time. When I saw it, I really enjoyed it. I wasn't blown away by it. But, you know, I guess, I don't know. Some people, like my brother, is really likes the first one, and he saw the second one, and he was disappointed. Like, he said, yeah, it was okay. Like, he enjoyed it, but he's like, oh, it wasn't as good as the first one. And like, and then people nitpick the inconsistencies, like, oh, the accent's wrong, and it's just like, well, you can't really say that. I don't know. I don't agree with that at all. I think that's a pretty stupid point to make, but whatever. But yeah, and like, and the things that, like, I think, like, and the relationship between Holmes and Watson is, you know, in the first one, people say, like, you know, all the reviewers, they kind of like were like, oh, like, there's this element of like eroticism, or it was like kind of homosexual in certain regards, like homoerotic, and I think like it was like subtextual in the first one, maybe, and in this one they kind of just, they're more open with it. Like, I'm not sure if it was intentional in the first one, because it is so like subtextual. Like, it's really is in the subtext. It's all in the small moments and stuff like that. So I don't know. I don't really think it was meant to be there to a certain extent. I think they were just kind of looking at this as like, oh, these guys are just good friends, because you can be just somebody, you can be close to just the guy, you don't have to be you can have that kind of relationship, and it doesn't have to be a homosexual one. But, you know, because we live basically in the times that we do, like, that's what people are going to say that. You know, there's no way around that, I guess. You know, but whatever, I digress. But yeah, so in this one you could tell that they like purposefully like added things like that. It was all over the place, and it ended up, you know, it was funny because they're kind of like bickering husband and wife. Like, that's the relationship in the sequel more than anything else. But there's also, it's very kind of sweet and charming though, because like their friendship is, they realize how important they are to each other, not just like emotionally, and not just because of like, you know, being able to like crack a case and stuff like that. Like, that's what Holmes will say, but like he really does care for Watson like quite a bit, and it's kind of a nice and like sweet relationship they have, that they need each other to a certain extent, even if the other one won't admit it. But it's cool, like, you know, you get to go on this kind of, it's a more of a expanded adventure than the first one. It's kind of globe-trotting, and lots of like, you know, lots of action set pieces, like lots of humor. That's kind of like the number one thing, but that's the kind of thing you get when you get with somebody like Robert Downey Jr. or something like that. He's just going to bring it. He's going to bring that kind of sensibility to it, whether or not like it was intended to be there. And that's kind of, I think, you know, part of the draw of these movies is Robert Downey Jr., obviously. The guy's got charisma to spare, man. I mean, you know, Iron Man 2 wouldn't even have been worth watching if it wasn't for Robert Downey Jr., basically. Like, and that's the truth. Like, he's the kind of actor that can elevate mediocre material. And I think, like, the chemistry between him and Jude Law is actually really good. Like, they just have a natural ebb and flow with each other. And it's insanely entertaining to watch, you know? Yeah, well, that's gonna about do it for me. Like, I'd recommend Sherlock Holmes 2 as well. It's probably, in my opinion, Not being like a gigantic fan of these movies in general, it's on par with the first one. If you like the first one, you're probably gonna like the second one. You know, all the performances all around are pretty decent. What else? I feel like, I didn't really say much about it, but I don't know. I don't want to get into plot territory. And if you've seen the trailer, you know the basic plot outline, so why regurgitate it at you? But it was good. It was fun. I enjoyed it. Well, that's going to do it for me. I'm Sean with the Natural Gamers, and I will talk to you guys next time I watch a movie, which will probably be The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo and Tintin this coming week. So hopefully if you guys enjoy this, maybe give me a like. Give it a like, let me know, and maybe I'll make it more of a normal thing and try not to sound so awkward. It's